Dust whispered over the dry grass as Elijah Boone reined in his horse at the crest of a bluff. Below, the wind carried the rusted creak of a swinging rope. He narrowed his eyes. A figure dangled from an old juniper tree, her limbs limp, a white sign clattering on her chest. No mercy from the white man's rope. Elijah's heart dropped. He hadn't spoken to a soul in days, not since burying his wife, Clara, behind their empty house. Grief had taken him down the loneliest trails of Montana Territory. Yet something about the figure below, small, fragile, wrong, compelled him. Spurring his horse down the hill, Elijah approached slowly. The girl wasn't fully dead. Her lips twitched, faint and blue. Her delicate hands fluttered like moth wings. She was Chinese, barely in her 20s, with deep bruises around her throat. Someone had meant for her to die slow. He drew his knife and cut the rope. She crumpled into his arms, gasping faintly. Elijah's hands trembled. "You're all right now. I got you," he whispered, not knowing if she understood. But her fingers clutched his shirt. He didn't care who she was or why she'd been hung. Not yet. He just knew he wasn't leaving her to die. Chapter 2, A House for Ghosts. Elijah brought her to his ranch, more ghosts than cattle now. He laid her in Clara's old bed, fed her sips of water, tended to the welts on her neck. For 2 days, she didn't speak. On the third morning, her eyes opened with full awareness. Dark, almond-shaped, clouded by pain and fury. "You saved me," she said hoarsely. Her accent was heavy, but her words were clear. He nodded. "Name's Elijah Boone. I am my Leanne." Her voice cracked. "From Guangdong." "You got kin?" he asked gently. She looked away. "No, all gone. Killed in California. I was sold to a railroad boss." Her fingers dug into the blanket. "I ran." Elijah sat beside her, and some bastard thought that deserved a rope. I nodded, tears brimming. "The sheriff's men caught me near town. Said I was a thief. A filthy Chinawoman. They tied me up, laughed, left me to die." Elijah stared into the fire. He had buried a wife. Now he dragged a half-dead stranger into that same home. But something fierce had stirred in him. Not just guilt, not just pity. It was a fire of justice, and something else he hadn't felt in months. Chapter 3, The Town with No Heart. 2 weeks later, Mike could walk again. Her hair had begun to shine. She had taken to tending Elijah's overgrown garden and feeding the chickens. But Elijah knew the men who'd hung her walk free. He saddled his horse and rode into Rosecreek, hat low over his eyes. The town was a boiling pit of tension. Men glared at him. Whispers followed. At the saloon, he found them, Deputy Clayhart, and 2 cowhands from the rail camp. They stopped laughing when Elijah entered. "You got a death wish, Boone." Clay sneered. "Heard you took in that yellow rat." Elijah walked slow and hard. "She's got a name, and she's under my protection." Clay snorted. "That girl was a whore, a thief. The town didn't want her. Then the town can answer to me." Elijah pulled a folded note from his coat. "This here's a signed confession from my. I'm taking it to the federal marshal in Helena. Let's see how they like hanging women without trial." The saloon fell silent. Clay stepped back. "You wouldn't dare." "You're right." Elijah's voice dropped. "I swear it." He turned and walked out, the air thick with menace behind him. Chapter 4, The Cost of Mercy. That night, Elijah returned to find his barn ablaze. My screamed as flames danced across the sky. He ran in with buckets, slamming water over hay. My didn't hesitate. She followed, scout-soaked, fighting alongside him. By dawn, the barn was gone, but the livestock was safe. Smoke curled from the ashes, but it wasn't just wood that had burned. Elijah had seen the message scrawled in soot on the door. "Chink lover, Next time, it's you. He sat on the porch, a whiskey bottle in hand. You should go. I can't protect you. But I knelt beside him. You did protect me. I won't leave. He looked at her for a long time. Why not? Because you didn't look at me like a whore when I was half dead. You looked at me like a person. He swallowed hard. You remind me of Clara. Mai's eyes shimmered. I am not her, but I will not run, even if I die. They sat in silence as the sun rose, two wounded souls, surrounded by ghosts. Chapter 5, Love in the Firelight. Summer burned the grass dry, and the world grew still. Mai worked the ranch like it was her own, milking the cow, fixing the chicken fence, even learning to shoot Elijah's old colt. She was tough, scarred, but her laughter began to return, small and careful. One evening, she brought a bowl of soup to Elijah on the porch. You don't talk about Clara, she said softly. He nodded. We lost a baby. She took it hard, got sick and never came back from it. Mai reached for his hand. Pain is a heavy horse, but you don't ride it alone anymore. Her touch was warm, her fingers calloused, strong. He looked into her eyes and saw not just sorrow, but steel. Life had tried to break her, but she'd survived. And somewhere in the dust and danger, so had he. That night, under the stars, Elijah kissed her, not in passion, but in reverence. And Mai let him, tears mingling with the moonlight. Chapter 6, Blood in Rosecreek. Word spread fast. Boone shacking up with that China woman. Then came the threat, a notice nailed to the town church. Last warning, Boone. Get out. Take her with you. Elijah rode into town again, rifle slung across his back. This time, Mai rode behind him, silent and steady. They walked into the sheriff's office together. Sheriff Duggan stood behind his desk, guilt all over his face. I didn't sanction the hanging. That was Clay and his boys. You let it happen, Elijah said coldly. You're just as guilty. I ain't gonna protect you, Boone. You're making enemies. I've had worse. He dropped the confession onto the desk. That's going to Helena. And if you don't stop this mob, I'll send it with your name on it too. Duggan paled. You're risking your life for her. I'm fighting for what's right, Elijah growled. You'd remember that if you still had a soul. As he left, a shot rang out. Mai screamed. Elijah turned to see Deputy Clay at the saloon door, rifle smoking. Elijah dove and returned fire, one shot, clean through Clay's chest. The deputy collapsed on the steps, blood pooling. The silence that followed was not fear. It was respect. Chapter 7. Home, not haunted. Months passed. The rail company moved camps. The town grew quiet. Some still whispered behind their hands, but no one dared challenge Elijah again. Mai planted wildflowers on Clara's grave. Thank you, she whispered to the stone, for letting him find me. Elijah watched her from porch. His heart no longer felt like a ruin. One evening, he knelt in the grass beside her. I built this place for a family. Thought that dream died with Clara. Mai turned to him. Maybe you just had to wait for the right season. I want you here, Mai. Not as a guest. Not as a memory. As my wife. Tears welled up, but she smiled through them. I thought you'd never ask. Epilogue. Mercy and redemption. The wind still blew dust across the prairie. But now, the house stood whole. A new barn had risen. A cradle sat near the hearth, waiting. Mai sat on the porch with Elijah, her hand resting on her rounded belly.